All right, teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the #1 show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. To my regular listeners, you already know what I'm about, man. First of all, shout out to Podmatch again. Gotta shout them out. You guys have done legendary things for this podcast for a long time. It was just a solo episode podcast. I started off having guests, and it's kind of been back and forth because I'm one of those that does not like to logistically go out and find people or, make sure everyone's on schedule. I have enough material in my own head to keep the podcast going. But when I got introduced to Podmatch, Ron, I was like, I love this. I love this because people like you can come in and bring value to what it is I'm doing. And I'm all about teamwork. I'm all about, creating innovative ways for companies and staffs to build teamwork and things of that nature. And, you do the same thing. So with all that, so I don't make the intro too long, but Mr. Ron Reich, the founder of RLB Leadership, correct? Did I get that right?
That's correct.
Is on here. So welcome to the show. And just kind of introduce yourself and then we'll kind of go from there.
Good. Thanks, Aswand. Yeah, my name is Ron Reich, and Aswand, I am so unbelievably blessed to be able to say that I have been in training and development for over 30 years now, and it is just my absolute passion. I love doing what I do, and I say very, very proudly, and I hope it comes across as proud and confident. I'm good at what I do. I enjoy what I do. And one of the things I enjoy the most is helping people, helping teams be their best. And I mean, I glanced at your background. I mean, I've been a competitive athlete, never at any huge levels or anything like that. Still in all, I'm a huge sports fan. And man, I'm just so anxious to talk with you. I really am.
Likewise. Now, unfortunately, guys, he is a Giants man. I grew up in the DMV, so grew up a Redskins fan. However, I did attend Stony Brook, and I was around you guys. My mother's actually a Giants fan, so I know you guys from a personal standpoint, and that kind of leads me to my first question because you have done a ton of corporate training, corporate executive training. Also, you've mentioned to being a very ferocious reader. What connections do you see, especially with an organization like the Giants, that's always been known for family-run businesses, always been known that at least the people in the front office speak very highly of it. It's one of the organizations that's kind of built the league. What kind of connections do you see when it comes to the corporate experience that you've been in and how sports kind of trains people to think like that, how sports helps people when it comes to dealing with teams and dealing with bosses and dealing with, staff members and all the challenges that come up day to day? How do you, what kind of connections do you see?
There are so many different
Oh, yeah,
things.
by the way, before you even answer that, I want to tell you, there's no time limits to this podcast. So however loaded I get with the questions, feel free to take as much time as you need answering anything.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. I think there are so many different connections at so many different levels. I think, one of the connections, one of the very important ones that people need to learn, or even kids need to learn at a very, very early age, are expectations. It's just like,
Yes.
hey, practice starts at 5 o'clock. That means you are here, you are ready to start practicing at 5 o'clock. I don't want you showing up. It's not 10 after 5. It's not 6 minutes after 5. Oh, sorry, we were late, or whatever it might be. And and Aswand, I understand, I really do. At a young age, fine. Maybe there are, some logistical problems with parents or whatever. My point is, though, at such a young age, these kids can start to learn discipline. And they can start to learn that other people know what they're talking about and that they need to listen to people who know more than they do.
Right.
And you're making me think of something that I haven't considered in years.
Yeah. And
Long time ago.
I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm gonna let you finish because one of the things that I, even to this day in work, and I teach and I deal with a lot of teachers, right? And they tell me all the time, one thing about you, Aswan, is you're not late. You do not show up late. And I tell them this all the time. Look, I was in college. I played college football for Carson Newman College. It was a D2 program. That was my freshman year. And we had something called Eagle Time. If there was a meeting and we needed to be there 5 minutes early, there was a time my roommate and I got there 2 minutes early and not 5 minutes early. And we got our ass chewed out. Like ever since then, I'll make sure my ass is on time. Whenever I have to do it, I have not stopped that. So anyway, you were going, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No, no,
you were going to a thought.
it's okay because it's all about expectations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I coached Little League for a number of years.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I used to drill into our infielders, just always, glove down every single pitch. Glove down, be ready, and I want you thinking before every single pitch, where am I going if the ball is hit to me?
Mm-hmm.
And I still remember, we were having infield practice,
Mm-hmm.
and one of our infielders didn't have his glove down. And I didn't yell at him per se. I yelled across the field. I can't remember his name anymore. It might have been Chris, whatever. Chris, get that glove down. And one of the kids walking by me said, do you ever take a break from that? And I laughed and I put my arm around him and I was like, no. And I said, let me ask you a question though. Do I know what I'm talking about? And he looked at me and he goes, you sure do.
Right.
And Aswand, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. That's not
Right.
my point. My point is that people need to learn is that, hey, there are people out there that know more than I do.
Yeah.
I've been training development for almost 31 years now. There
Mm-hmm.
are a lot of people out there that know more than I do. And I need to lean on them. That's okay. And
Right.
some have less experience than I do.
Mm-hmm.
Again, my point is there's, the discipline, the learning the expectations, learning how to win gracefully,
Mm-hmm.
learning how to lose with dignity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. I mean, one of the most poignant moments I've had in my life, and I'm not kidding, is after an all-star game, one of our kids made an error in the last inning, winning run scored.
Mm-hmm.
We are walking off the field, and I'm talking to Chris. He's 13 years old. He's got a tear in his eye. And I just looked at him. I was like, Chris, what's wrong? And of course I knew. He's like, I blew it. I made an
Mm-hmm.
error. And I was like, okay, yeah, you did. You made an error. Let me ask you a question. What was the mistake you made?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I let the ball play me. He said, it was a Baltimore chop. He was playing second base, and he said,
Mm-hmm.
I should have charged it, and I should have played it before it bounced and went through my legs.
Right.
And I was like, okay, what are you going to do differently next game? Just that, coach. Just that. I'm going to play in a little bit more. And I was like, where's the issue, Chris? Where is the issue? You learned something. Yeah, we got beat. And as I sit here, Aswand, I swear to you, the
Mm-hmm.
sun is setting in the background. And I looked at Chris and I was like, hey, let me ask you something, Chris. And he's like, what, coach? What do you think the odds are that big orange thing is going to come back up again tomorrow? And he was like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. I mean, I've lost. I played in a lot of championship, and I've lost more than I've won. And that's the one thing Coach Malloy would tell us every single time we lost. Hey, the sun will come up in the morning. And because we're talking about this, and I've obviously I've listened to quite a few of your previous interviews. You are big on leadership. You know it in and out. You know how the different types of leadership, the understanding of empathy, how to communicate with staff, how to do a lot of things when it comes to a leadership standpoint. When it comes to how to develop as a leader, because that's what I see a lot, very common in my line of work. I've seen a ton of business owners, people buy a business, they don't know how to lead. They're thinking that just by talking or not communicating with their employees, the whole thing. Where do you think the best step is when it comes to developing as a leader that someone can go? Because it's so necessary with social media, with the ways we communicate. And I actually just wrote an article about this nowadays, and I actually want to get your thoughts on this. Nowadays, anybody can get in touch with anybody. So having a boss or having the kind of superior, it's losing its value Because if you say something that this employee doesn't appreciate or doesn't like, they're getting on their LinkedIn accounts, they're getting on they're doing whatever it is they're doing, and they're thinking that the grass is greener on the other side because
right.
it's a boss, you don't have this kind of autonomy or this authority over them. Seeing everything that you've seen in 30 years, where do you tell leaders to start when it comes to actually developing as a leader? I'm really curious to hear your answer on this one because I've seen some shit, man. I've seen some people just like, look, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm done. This thing is getting too much, and they just go and sell their business. So, the floor is yours, please.
You see me drinking out of my mug or out of my giant water cooler.
I see it, man. I see it.
I've been a Giant season ticket holder. I think this is going to be season 30, something like that.
30.
Long time.
So this is Parcell. This is LT time, probably.
Just before.
Just before LT.
Just before. I was not there when LT was playing. I was a fan, of course.
Yeah.
My point.
But you at least got to witness Eli, the Super Bowls, and taking down the Patriots, the whole thing.
We're in the parking lot tailgating. There are 8 core people. And of course, we all know what everybody does for a living and so forth. Peter is part of our group, and Peter is chief financial officer for a technology company in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. He comes up to me one tailgate. He goes, hey, Mr. Leadership Development Man.
Is that what he called you?
Yeah. And I denied it no one, and I don't think he would deny he had been drinking.
Right. Yeah, well, you're tailgating, okay. You're watching your boys. You're watching your boys.
Okay. He said to me, throw me the one tip that could make me the best leader possible.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, all right, Peter, let me think about it, and I'll get back to you in a couple of minutes. I gave it some thought, and I'm dead serious when I say this, and I say this to the groups I facilitate. You want to be the best leader possible, and if you're going to limit me to one tip, get to know yourself extraordinarily well.
Wow.
The better you know yourself on every single level, the more effectively you will work with other people. What are your strengths? What are your limitations? What triggers you at work? What are you passionate about? What do you love to do? What makes you crazy?
Mm-hmm.
You know yourself really, really, really well. It's at that point in time, and you mentioned the word earlier, Aswand, at least for me, it's at that point in time you can start to have more empathy with it for other people, and you can start to work more effectively with them. It allows people to be vulnerable. Hey, I know what my limitations are, and I know mine. I'll tell you right now, I'm very, very comfortable with that. And it's not limited to these. I am not strong technically. I never have been. I never will be. I can get through the basics, yes. Something goes haywire technically during a presentation or doing a class that I'm doing, I need help. Someone's got to help me, everybody. And I'm not going to try to pretend I can fix it or whatever. In addition, I don't write particularly well. I struggle putting the proverbial pen to paper. And I'm so grateful that my wife is a superior writer. So whenever I write something, if I write an article or a coaching summary, whatever it might be, she'll edit it for me because I need the help. I'm not that good at it. I know that. That's okay, because I also bring a lot of strengths to the table, a lot of them. And I'm very proud of that.
And I'm glad you elaborated when you say know yourself, okay? Because I've run into, whether it's coaches or whether it is own business owners or people that were bosses at the time. And when you say know yourself, ultimately, sometimes it translates in their head to being selfish and never being wrong. Okay, so I'll give you an example. When I was and this is another sports example, I was in high school. I was a guy that can go from Division III all the way to FCS. I had that wide range of ability, right? And we had a coach who was kind of the liaison between college coach and high school coach and things of that nature. And, I would ask him questions about an honest feedback. Where do you think I can go? How good do you think I am? And instead of him telling me, look, you're going to be this level because your grades are so poor, it was always be telling me what he thought I wanted to hear. not because he wanted to hurt me, but because it was going to start to be a reflection on who he is and where he can place his kids. All right. So I love that you say that as a leader. And this is important for you managers to know as well, that you're not there to be a miracle worker. Again, if he just shoots Aswand straight and say, look, Aswand, you're 2.2 grade point average, you play one position on the field, and you're barely 200 pounds. That's not FBS material. That's more FCS Division III material. If he tells me that, maybe I get in the weight room a little bit more, I get better, and I just take it. But I understand, hey, look, he's just being truthful with me because he knows himself. But when you start to take the advice of, okay, I'm going to know myself, it does not mean being selfish. All right. I want to make sure that's clear and we're on the record saying that. It means knowing yourself to the point that you can give people some, hey, I don't know this. I'm going to defer to the experts. I'm going to defer to somebody like you. And ultimately, also what it does, it helps you when you hire people. It helps you when you hire people. It helps you bring in the right people. It helps you bring in the folks that you can partner with. I mean, so many things in your business runs a whole lot smoother when you do exactly what Mr. Ron Reich said. So I'm glad you elaborated on that. And the question I actually have for you now is, because I know our business, I know it's difficult. When you run into these egos, when you run into these people, you know, everything is not going to be easy when you're telling guys, when you're telling guys get vulnerable and, you know, they're telling like, how do you deal with that clash where I'm sure you get this like, look, Ron, I'm with you, but I'm just trying to make money. I don't know about all this stuff you're doing. How do you deal with that? How do you kind of manage those egos?
I think where I'm going to go with the answer there,
Yes.
one is, and the more I've known this for a long time, it's just becoming more and more important to me, particularly in today's world with all these different generations working. And like you said before, people will leave in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
One of the key factors here is developing and living by a mission statement for the organization.
Mm.
And the reason I say that is simply because that needs to be the guiding light for the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And you get people, and again, we've all run into them. It's like, oh yeah, this is the other people need the training, or no, the team needs the training. It's like, yeah, you're right, absolutely, and so do you,
Yeah.
and so do you. And again, because without a solid mission statement, how can you make decisions? How can you guide the people that are working for you? And where are you going?
Mm-hmm.
And one of again, a story that pops into my head. I had a guy years and years ago. I wasn't working with him. We just happened to get talking. He was the president of a for-profit hospice company. And he said to me, he said, I'm really, really struggling. My marketing is not going well, and just a lot of other things.
Right.
I said to him, David, do you have a mission statement? No, we don't need one. Say, okay, let me ask you something. Do you find yourself making inconsistent decisions?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, all the time. And I said, well, when you have a big decision to make, on what do you base it?
Mm-hmm.
How revenue is at the time?
Right.
And I was like, there's one of your biggest problems.
Right.
And again, where I'm going with this,
Mm-hmm.
part of the mission statement is that the owner, the president, who's ever running the organization, along with his or her team,
Mm-hmm.
they all need to know what this organization is all about.
Right.
This is where we're going. Do you want to come with us? Because this is the journey in which we are headed.
Yeah, and the more you stay locked into that, and again, I'm going to keep going back to who you bring in, because you're only as good as the people you bring in. When you stay true to that, business owners, listening to me, please take this down. All right. When you stay true to that, you will decrease the amount of turnover that you get. And I cannot tell you how important that is, because these kids nowadays, they're coming up in a completely different world. They're lost. All right. They're walking around. I mean, there's kids, influencers. They're getting approached with this deal. They're getting approached with that deal. There's all this pressure to actually look like you have it all together. That traditional idea of just going and getting the job those days are done, and they're done. The kids are not aspiring to do that. However, it takes us to guide them. I mean, the point that you make about having a mission and a vision to guide them a certain way, it's so freaking important for them when they grow up in a world that has so many different distractions. And that actually brings me to the one of the next things I want to actually talk to you about is, did you have something you want to say?
And yeah, just one thing before we do that, because again, you're making me realize too, there's another connection here,
Mm-hmm.
is that the executives need to know themselves, the managers need to know themselves, everybody does. And the one thing that has been helping clients of mine is something I call thought pondering questions. And I have developed 15 thought pondering questions for people to answer
Mm-hmm.
when they are struggling in an organization. I had a client, I had someone the other day, I was talking to her. She's in the fashion industry.
Mm-hmm.
And she's telling me, she goes, I don't know. I don't know if I want to stay here. I'm a supervisor. I don't know if I want to do this. And she's just really,
All
really
over the place, right?
unclear. I was like, let me send you the thought pondering questions.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go through this because it will give you a clearer idea just of who you are, what you are, both personally and professionally.
Mm-hmm.
And it can start to guide and help you make your own decisions about whether you should join an organization, not join an organization, because it goes both ways. That's what you're saying is like bring good people on. Yeah, except both sides need to make good decisions on
Right.
that.
So now you don't have to share all 15, but what kind, like, how would I, this is the first time I'm actually hearing that concept. What kinds of things does a person, like, how did you come up with it? And what kinds of things is it going to lead to a person being clear about?
I am a voracious reader.
Oh, good.
Just
There you go. That's actually
voracious.
what I was gonna bring that up next, but go ahead.
Yeah. And just over the years, Aswan, I just as I come across wonderful questions that I see
Mm-hmm.
in books, I'll just write them down and I'll add them to the list. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have it in front of me. I'll just take a quick look at it.
Yeah, good.
Uh,
Now, again, you're free to share if you'd like, but I'm not sure if this is
oh,
proprietary.
no, goodness,
But yeah,
no.
go ahead.
Goodness, no. Uh, what are you doing at work that makes you lose track of time? In other words, just what are you doing where all of a sudden you realize,
Mm-hmm.
man, 3 hours passed. That
Hmm.
is so cool. I didn't even
Yeah.
realize.
Yes.
Uh, when you
Well,
can
for me, it'd
stop.
be actually I teach, so when I'm actually with the kids, it's probably the best time.
Yeah. I mean, let's go in the other direction because
Right.
that ties directly into work. What are the highest priorities for your life,
Mm-hmm.
and how does your work fit into them?
Excellent. Excellent.
Okay, so again,
I mean,
getting people to think. And it's interesting because my wife's cousin is actually it'll tie into what we've been talking about. She was the assistant athletic director for
mhm,
actually I'm sorry, as assistant uh, medical director for a school. Okay,
mhm,
the assistant training director.
right.
She was offered a really big promotion, a lot of money and everything else, except it was also going to take a lot of time, a
Mhm,
lot of time. She's married, she has two really beautiful boys. And she was, just should I do this? Should I do this? I don't know. I don't know.
mhm,
And my wife volunteered my help, which I was glad to do.
right.
And I told Jen, before I talk to you, I want you to answer these questions. We got on the phone and she was like, oh my. Oh my, do you have me thinking? And I was like, good, Jen, that's what this is about.
Yeah.
Because again, it's not just simply, oh, yes, I'll take the job. Yes, I want the promotion.
Right.
Yes, I'll do that. It's like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute.
Mhm,
You know what I mean? And again, it's just a friend of mine, Tim, essentially, he was a manager
mhm,
uh, for traders. I think he managed three or four traders.
mhm,
And the company his boss left. Very long story short, he was offered his boss's job. And Tim is talking to me, he goes, oh yeah, this is gonna be great. I can't wait to get into this. And he was like, it's gonna be really different though. And I was like, Tim, how thoroughly have you thought this through?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're no longer gonna be a manager. Now you are gonna be a manager of managers.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, oh, yeah. I said, you're not gonna be doing what you were doing. The competencies are changing here.
Mm-hmm.
No, he said, yeah, he said they told me I'd have to put a business plan together. I've never done that. I was like, yeah. I mean, all these different things. And again, point being, you've got to know yourself. What are you looking for? What's important to you? And then if you don't have the knowledge, how can you acquire it?
Mm-hmm.
People like me can help, people like you can help.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And that's some self-embedded marketing. And I don't care because it's also a very important thing for people to do to get some help when they need it.
Right. And first of all, I'm glad you mentioned the fact that you're a ferocious reader because that's a very key element to leadership development, guys. You have got to read. You have got to make sure you're feeding your brain with something new so you're able to keep pushing. If you get swallowed up by this world, the only thing that this real world, quote unquote, is about is money. The bottom line is money. They just want to hit their quotas, and that's the majority of it. If you could bring some perspective that doesn't have to necessarily do with money to the world, you've already added value. Trust me. And I was one of those that didn't become a reader until after I graduated college. And then I read my first book, Lou Holtz, Winning Every Day, and I have not stopped. I could not stop reading after that. So that's a very important point that he made. But there's also another element to what you said that a lot, like myself included, that we struggle with. It comes to merging your life and your business. Okay. Meaning having the wife, having the kids, having the family, the family, and then also figuring out how am I going to run my business on top of that? And you see so many sacrifices, so many people just not knowing where to go when it comes to that. So if you can speak on some of your like best tips when it comes to balancing life and business or life in your company and life and taking a job offer, I know it'll bring a whole lot of value to me, but I'm sure it'll bring a ton of value to the listeners.
I am a big believer in
Mhm.
Stephen Covey's work, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Oh man, that's the man. Yeah, Steve Covey, boy, he's got it.
I'm certified to teach the class.
Uh-huh.
I did it last week and I have a couple others coming up and I'm passionate about that.
Yeah.
Habit 3, put first things first.
Mm-hmm.
One of the key points is and I love the phrase, schedule your priorities, then prioritize your schedule.
Ooh.
How to, and again, quite a few years ago now, Aswand,
Mhm.
came home from a Giant game, okay? We played the 49ers. I still remember we were having a terrible year. We got beat, so I got home. I'm not in a very good mood. And my wife was not in a good mood at all when I got home. Very unlike her. It's just not who she is. I was, she's
Personality.
entitled. She's in a bad mood, whatever, no big deal.
Right.
Monday morning, I'm getting ready. I'm going to visit with a client in Houston. And I said, there's Lori, I'm getting ready to leave for the airport. I'll see you Thursday. Bye. I was like, okay, clearly there's something wrong.
Yeah.
You you are never here. You're never here. You
Mm.
go to those football games constantly. You're always on the road. I never see you. I don't even know you anymore. You and I are in trouble. And I was like, oh my. And I tell you now, I did not handle it well. I didn't. I didn't use good emotional intelligence because I went right back at her
Wow.
inappropriately, candidly. I know what's going on here. I do. You lost your mom, and I understand. I miss her too, Laurie. I loved your mother and all this other stuff. I'm not traveling any more than usual. It's just been a tough time, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Get on the plane and I fly out to Houston and I'm looking over my schedule. And I was like, oops, I forgot. I went to Detroit to go to the Giants opening game that, a couple of weeks ago.
Hmm.
Oh my goodness, I went to Philadelphia right when I got up. And I mean, my whole point is I was traveling a lot.
Yeah.
Got home, and I first of all, actually, let me ask you something. What do you think was the first thing I did, Aswand, when I got out to Houston? What do you think the first thing I did was?
The first thing I hoping that you called her when you landed
And said what?
and said I apologize.
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was wrong.
Hmm.
This is on me. Can we both please think about this? Let's come up with a scenario that will work for both of us.
Hmm.
Fine, let's do that. Now, granted, as I mean, I think I came up with the idea, and that's neither here nor there. That again, oh wow, I'm so great. Not at all. When I got home, I said to her, I was like, how about if we do this, Lori? Because I had been traveling more than I really like to, and whatever.
Right.
Whenever a client asks me to go out of town, before I accept the assignment, you and I will look at the master calendar together and
Mhm.
we will mutually decide if it's acceptable or not.
Wow.
And we have been doing that for, I don't know how many years now, and it's worked, it's working. And
Yeah.
that is a big way we keep balance with each other.
Yes.
And I have turned a lot of work down where she has said to me, Ron, I don't know if that's smart for you. I have said to her, Lori, this is too much for me. I just want you to know I got this offer. I'm not going to take it. I don't want to fly again next week, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And again, the key point is you've got to know what's important to you,
Yeah.
schedule your priorities, and then prioritize your schedule.
Yes. And it's so important that the big takeaway from that story is he's not being a yes man. All right. It was a true partnership and it was a genuine apology when he looked at his schedule and he said, you know what, I was wrong. And that's where a lot of people, what I've seen too, go wrong in relationships is they're so desperate to be with someone that they would just apologize and forget about their work or things like that. But what you did, I loved, is because it was genuine and she knows it was genuine. And the one thing about women is you can't lie to women. They know the truth. You know this better. If you would have apologized like right on the spot and you didn't have the initial reaction, first of all, it shows that you're not passionate about what you do, what you are. But then you looked at it and you said, wait a minute, I am wrong. And it took in the first thing I love the fact that it was the first thing you did when you landed. That's a genuine thing. And I'm sure she appreciates it 1,000 more percent than if you would have just been like, okay, I'll just stay home. You know what I'm saying? It's
Exactly.
important that you
Exactly.
actually are genuinely apologetic. And that does not happen with just fake fluff. I just want to be in the house. That happens with people that actually want to go places. And it's important that we make sure we emphasize that to the listeners as well. Because again, with social media and what has happened now is we are with people for the show. We're with people just to say we're with somebody. We want to pretend that these connections are real when I'm always of the mindset of you really gotta, like you said, figure out how you want to make money in this world. You got to figure out what you want to be doing every day, go full throttle in it. And then when the people start coming into your life, you start saying, all right, I can make a sacrifice here. I don't have to take that speaking engagement because I want to be with you. And, I like the way we complement each other. And that's where the balance comes in. And it's really a challenging thing. I mean, obviously it's easier said than done, but it's really a challenging thing to figure that piece out. But I honestly just sitting here talking to you, I'm realizing how much of a rewarding thing it actually is going to be. How cool it is when you figure that out. It is awesome just to think about it. So, with all that, I do want to be very respectful of your time. Is there anything that's coming down the pipeline? Anything that's coming next for your company? How can people get if they want to work with you? What's the best way? Where do you send them?
Oswald, the best way for anyone to get in touch with me very simply is through LinkedIn.
Yes.
Just go to LinkedIn, Ron Reich,
Mhm.
REICH, RLB Training and Development. And I promise anybody, yourself, any listeners, you reach out to me and we will chat.
Yes.
Just like you and I are doing now. We will chat. We're not going to get a sales call. You're not going to get, oh, well, I'll have to charge you. I can't share that with you. I'll help anybody. And if anything, if we decide, hey, we can work together, wonderful. I mean, it's great. If
Right.
not, and like we were saying early on, that's okay. That's all right. No big deal.
Right.
It's like, how can I help you? And it's it's going to work out the way it's supposed to. I believe that with every fiber I have.
Gotcha. And I'll make sure I put a link to your LinkedIn account in the show notes as well. So, Ron, what I do to close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination for a little bit. You're 30 years ago, you just started the company, you're kind of getting new clients, you're trying to figure things out, you're brand new into this, you kind of thrusted into this thought leadership world, and it's either sink or swim. So I want you to pretend that young man has come into the Zoom room, and just give him some words of encouragement, and we'll officially close.
There's an activity I do with the leaders. It's one of the first things I do in every session.
Mhm.
And we break into small groups. There are some flip charts on the wall. Just put down what your role is as a leader. What are the major things you need to do as a leader to be successful? So they'll do that. And the debrief always leads to, all I need to ask them, how much technical information is on those flip charts? And they look and it's like very, very little. And I was like, that's right. So what's your role as a leader? To be human.
Ooh.
And for me, that would have been some wonderful advice all those years ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've got to get the results. And yes, you've got to be, you've got to do the hard work. Be human, build the relationships, the rest will follow.
Amen to that. Just simply be human. All right. All right, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.